Hello, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to Talking Faith with Catholic Sis. I'm your host, the Catholic Sis, Ellen Nicholson. And tonight I'm talking about what a vocation is, who actually has one, why you should go on a retreat, and what a Catholic gal really carries around in her backpack. I know, should be interesting, so stay tuned. I'd like to welcome my co-host and producer, the one and only Kent.
Hello.
There he is. Shall we wave again?
Hello. I can wave.
You can wave. We love waving. So, anything exciting going on down there?
It's called the NFL draft.
Okay.
That's going on in the United States of America. Right? There's other things that we don't really want to talk about. There's some, but everybody is who's a sports fan is with that. But right now, just keeping motivated about our faith, and hopefully welcome Chat Mom to the chat room. How are things up in Canada?
It's been a bit cold. I opened my mouth too soon and enjoyed the heat, and now it's gone cold and rainy. So not too thrilled about that, but it's almost summer, so I'm practicing of what it feels like to be warm again.
Right.
Well, I'm practicing getting back in the swing of things.
Good.
And speaking of the swing of things, we have got a swinging show tonight that is jam-packed.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
It's just one.
Vocations. Great topic.
Yeah, because on the weekend it was the World Day of Prayer for Vocations, right? And because I spent 2.5, just about 3 years discerning religious life, right? That's like one of my favorite days of the year. Yahoo! World Day of Prayer for Vocations. I'm so excited.
Yeah. No, it's great.
So that's, it's a really important weekend, right? It's the day to, pray for those discerning a vocation, pray for those who are eventually going to, they just don't know it yet.
Yes. No, yes.
Very true. It's an even bigger deal this year because we're in the year for consecrated life, right? Which is lasting all the way till next year. So, anything with vocations is a really big deal this year. So that's fine and dandy, but in case you're not familiar with any of those words I just said, what is a vocation anyway? So when you hear vocations, what comes to your mind when you hear vocations?
What comes to my mind, mostly, you can have the vocation of, any kind of religious life. I think, then marriage. Even the and I think we're going to bring up, single life and being single is also a vocation.
What? It's a vocation? I thought it was a curse.
It was yes, it was. But I've learned after you go through it, and you see that, and then you also talk to people that are still single and are doing some great work in their own ways. That's a great, it is. I believe it's a vocation, and I know some people will say it's a curse, and I've been there. I've been in that. Yeah,
quick, I gotta change the relationship status. Oh no.
Yes.
Everybody's gonna know I'm single. That's terrible. So that's good. You've covered all the bases for us. I like that. Yes. So in layman's terms, right, you get the really big, long theological explanations of a vocation. In simple terms, a vocation is God's will for you and your life, planned especially just for you by God. It's like a custom order, right?
Yes.
Custom, it's not one of those, one size fits all, one vocation fits all kind of thing.
Right.
It doesn't come in a box. It's designed especially just for you by God, who, knows us better than we know ourselves. As much as we like to think we know everything about ourselves, we don't.
Right. And like you're saying in this next one, everyone has a vocation.
Everybody. That's why I put nice and bright.
Yep.
Everybody's got a vocation.
Yes.
And people look at me and say, what? Then I say, yeah, but a vocation is God's will for you. So wouldn't that technically mean we all have a vocation? Because it's not, we don't, turn 18, 19 and just, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Miraculously, we just, sit and twiddle our thumbs for the next, 60 years of our lives. You do something with your life.
Right.
What that doing is your vocation.
Yeah, sure. And
right. So
yep.
Go ahead.
No. And I think we also have another slide, and the three different.
There's three.
Yes.
Which is good because most people say, oh, vocation's okay, that's priesthood and religious life, which is correct, but there's also two others. And as you were talking about, there's marriage and there's singlehood. So, like I said, most people think of vocations, okay, priesthood, brother, sister, nun. There is a difference. Nuns are cloistered, sisters are not. There is a difference there. And that's true, but there are, like we were saying, there's other vocations. And when you think about it, so when you're married, right? You're married to your spouse, yay, the wedding bells and the wedding march and all that. When you're a nun or a sister, you're actually married to Jesus, which is a really exciting thing.
Right. It is kind of funny to have I never even thought being married to my wife and then my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law are one. My brother-in-law's actually, I think there's about 3 more years for him to be until he becomes a priest, and then my sister-in-law is discerning still some kind of religious life, and I think that's those vocations are just amazing to think about. That they're building a relationship with God, and that's it. It kind of boggles your mind, kind of, because they're waiting to, it's not someone here, it's someone eternal life they're waiting for, which is pretty, so.
It's really cool when you think about that, right? Because it's you're marrying God.
It's big.
I'm like, whoa. And then priests, on the other hand, right? They're married to the church. Their job is to be married to the church, which in essence is we are the church, right? So they're there for us, right? They serve us. That is their career, right? You know?
Yep.
It is a career. It doesn't always come up in career aptitude tests, but it is a career.
That's a great point. Great point.
People are like, okay, let me take a career aptitude test. Okay.
Well, here's okay, and you're saying that, and I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
But it was just like I always think about it, and I know one of the guys over in the radio station in Conneaut, Ohio, mentioned this, and I always think about it. That why don't they have? And I understand it's probably you can't do it in a public school, but why couldn't they have? When it's career day, a priest come in? Or I know it's probably kind of you're stepping on a lot of boundaries, and it's
a lot of boundaries, a lot of toes. In the diocese, like when we had last year, we have a Catholic high school down by the cathedral. They had a career day, and they had like 7 priests that showed up. Right, there was a diocesan priest. There was a religious order priest, like Salvatorian priest, who actually happened to be at our parish. So he went down and showed up for career day. There was a religious brother. We have Franciscan priests and Franciscan brothers. We have, one brother, one priest in the diocese, right? So they all went down to career day. I'm like, oh, that's so cute.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm getting with homeschooled kids mentioning priesthood is not a career. I can see where, but it's a vocation. I think that's, but I think there's, you as a young, even the youth, or even when I was a kid, I would pretend that, I was had a robe and the Bible and the grape juice and the smash down the bread and set up everything up as my friend, with my family and I felt that, but I never, pursued it. I think, the marriage life was for me, but I remember a lot, asking a lot of Catholics, even my peers and even youth, that they did that. It was one of those things that,
I think a ton of Catholic kids did that. And that's why, to an extent, it's not a career, but it is, but it isn't.
Yeah.
Right? It isn't in the sense that, it's a job per se.
No, yeah.
But when you talk to somebody and you say, hey, what are you going to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be a priest. Okay. Right. I want to grow up. I want to be an evangelist. They can be an evangelist in 100 different ways. You could be a youth minister and evangelizing. You could be
great, yeah.
Like how we are right now. We're evangelizing.
Yes.
Right?
Hmm?
So
I hope so. Yeah.
He's like, oh, we are.
we are.
We're evangelizing. I like that. So all right. So I think that's good. Something important to remember is, right, there's the, with the year for consecrated life, right, we're encouraging vocations to the priesthood and religious life. Without priests, there would be no sacraments, right? Because we need them to administer them. You can't say mass for yourself. You can't hear your own confession as much as we'd like to sometimes. We can't.
Right.
And then, religious sisters and brothers, right? There's the religious sisters that make the host for mass. There's the sisters who sew vestments, the ones that are nurses in the hospitals or work in, senior facilities kind of thing, right? So they're helping serve the church, which is, again, us, as they're married to Christ, right? Because it's a wonderful job.
No, it is. And I'm kind of overwhelmed to think about just eventually, seeing my brother-in-law becoming a priest and what that entails, because that's kind of it's just a amazing union with God and the union with and I know I'm gonna go back and forth, but when we talk about marriage, there's a lot of this culture is making 100 different definitions for marriage. But anyways, but of the vocation of priesthood and to say that you are going to be with, that union with God. I'm trying to, picture and talk, ask priests what, helps them to continue that, relationship. You're doing that, but is there
every day, day in, day out?
Is that, even for I think the youth kind of, get stagnant, you need those retreats.
You get a stall out sometimes in your relationship with Christ, right? Is that kind of what you're?
Yeah, that's basically, yeah.
Yeah, you got to think that sometimes, because exactly, as youth, as young people, as Catholics, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you go through periods where, I'm just not on fire, right? Yeah. I'm stalled out. I'm trying to, it can get that way in a relationship, right? It's all exciting for the first, 6 months, and then it's just, we're going out to dinner. We're going to see a movie. It's not exciting. It's not a novelty anymore, right? So, it's important. You think that for a priest too, they'd have to, have some ways of being inspired. And yet I would think that as a priest, you'd get so many, granted you get some, sad moments, but there'd be a lot of inspiration in being a priest, right? Seeing people come home, right? As a priest, right? You're inspiring young people, right? And when I think about, the priests and stuff that were pastors at my churches, right? I'm thinking they were inspiring, right? They were role models, and people are like, your role model is your priest? Oh, that's kind of interesting. But it's true, right? When we did, slideshows of who are your role models for class, lo and behold, our parish priest shows up, right? So they're inspiring others, and in turn, when they see those things bear fruit, it's an inspiration to them, basically, to keep on keeping on.
Right, and in the sense of what do we do for those people to discern religious vocations, and I think you have another slide of a couple things that we can do in our own ways or for others that are discerning. And
because that's the thing. And so a Gear for Consecrated Life, we're really promoting vocations, and then I think I might have a vocation. Now what do? I just sit here? No, there's like a ton of stuff you can do. I've picked 4. Right? So
no, that's great.
And number 1, pray, right? Pray in the silence, pray for God's will to be revealed to you. Get to know God through conversation, right? As we talked about last week, prayer is conversation with God. So, praying is talking with God and getting to know what is it you want of me, right?
Right.
And then also frequenting the sacraments, right? Going to confession often, often.
Well, it comes up every week, but it's
every week we got to talk about confession. We wave and we talk about confession. That's what we do on the show. We wave and we talk about confession a lot.
Yes.
So if you're discerning, you should be, at church all the time, right? Going to confession keeps your soul in state of grace, and then going to Mass, you can receive Jesus and draw even closer. Right? So you should be there. Get there.
Yes.
Right? And then you can talk to your priest, right? Which is what I did, right? I had a spiritual director, 2 actually. And then get their wisdom, get their knowledge. They've been there, done that, get their input, right? Ask God to put someone in your path who will help you, right? It's also valuable to talk to like other religious or, religious sisters or brothers, right? Because then discernment can be really scary.
Yeah,
it can be very scary. It's not just, I want to grow up and be a vet. Okay, well I'll just, it's scary.
Well, yeah, but do you think the youth are scared that it's almost like they're the only ones, almost in the sense of there's like a kind of, I don't know if that's the right way of saying it, but
I know what you mean.
You're just kind of by yourself, but
you're afraid you're afraid the only one. Like you read of, older, historically, right? There were times where there were like vocations just coming out of everywhere. Right, so then to say, I'm actually discerning the priesthood, be like, oh, good for you. Your parents must be proud. Nowadays, it's like, I am kind of discerning something from God. I'm not quite sure. Right? That's what people do.
Yeah.
But again, it's not always looked on as nice. What? You want to be a priest? That means like you're never going to get married. You're never going to have kids. What would you want to do that for? Or, religious life, don't you got to like live in one of those little jail cells? Right?
Well, yeah, and I think that's the tough thing that we hopefully, with the youth that are in the chat room and just watching or listening to the show, don't be afraid. That's the thing.
Exactly.
Don't be afraid to
pursue it.
Yeah,
you're not the only one.
Right. You can go outside the box, of this culture nowadays.
That's an awesome point. Yeah, discerning a religious vocation seems like getting outside of the box, outside of the cookie cutter kind of stereotype of what some people think of, right?
Right.
Because it's so exciting, right? So don't be afraid that you're not the only one. Right? As much as you could be like, well, I'm the only one of everybody I know. Yeah, well, there's millions of Catholics out there, and there's more than there's more than your circle of friends. And granted,
and they need you.
You might inspire somebody else, or somebody else who is discerning, but I don't want to tell anybody because what if I'm the only one? Then there's 2 of you doing it at the same time.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing to talk about it, and it's cool to talk about it. I think we everything is a feeling or a way of how people are going to look at you. In the sense of, do we need to put, write Jesus on our forehead? No, I don't think. I mean, and if you want to do that, okay. I'm not.
Go ahead. More power to you.
But there's other ways to and I think we always bring this up, is how do you conduct yourself through daily life? That's the big thing, is it's your example more than how
that's
many.
The thing. When you discern, when you brand yourself as, I'm discerning the priesthood or the religious life, right? You automatically become this example, right? People are watching you all the time. Well, that's not very, nunly or sisterly. What are you doing that for? Yeah. Right? So that's not very priestly. Mm-hmm. And then, well, I'm not a priest yet. Well, you kind of said you want to be. So you should be you have to eventually start kind of, to a lesser extent, especially as youth, right? Living that now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right?
No, that's
Which
great.
is the same as, right? You're dating the religious life, right? Yep. That's what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Which, speaking of dating, will bring us to married life. And I'm like, say what? Being married is a vocation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because we were talking about, right? You have to, vocations are God's will for you. So marriage has to be discerned, because not everybody's called to be married.
No, that's a great, yes, exactly.
Right? I know I just threw out a big word, discern. You want to give us a vocab lesson? Do you have any guesses on what that word might mean?
Discern, I was looking, no, but basically, in the sense of what I look at it as, is to, basically look into yourself, basically examine yourself and figure out what you see in the future, what you feel as something that is what would be best for you, and that's I know it's not the dictionary term, but in the sense,
I like that.
I mean, it's how you look at kind of, you forecast, or you kind of, I don't know.
I like that definition. I think that's really good, because that's what I was about to say, right? Yeah, discern is a really fancy way to look at yourself and discern and ask God's will, right? Mm-hmm. Which makes you think, right? So you discern. You don't just discern in what I'm going to do when I grow up. You also discern, right? When we get older, we discern. If you're dating, discern whether we should be dating this person, or we discern whether we want to make this financial purchase, right? Discerning is basically thinking about asking God's, because again, as Catholics, right, we should have God in everything.
Right. No, yes.
Catholic is a way of life, right? So we bring we bring it into everything, right? So so tell us.
Yes.
You're married. So if you could say something to all us lovely youthy people out here about being married, what would you tell us?
Well, and we're gonna come. My frustration is all the terminologies of what marriage is, and I looked at, when I even asked, I was it was about a year and a half of discerning and date. Mm-hmm. But to know that I always say a soulmate. Sometimes my wife's got, I get the soulmate, but you kind of are looking for that person that
draws you closer.
Well, yeah, and can make you a better person. But then nowadays, hopefully, just make sure you understand it's not just the present; it's the future, and until you die. When you're doing that union with a man and
a
woman, and that's the only way.
That is the only way, people.
And hopefully, as a Catholic, that's another topic. But basically, in a parish, but to understand that it's not just now. And even though you're, it's a big
eternal,
deal. It's a big deal.
So it's eternal, just like how we were talking about religious life is, right? Because Catholics, we don't unless you can prove that there was no love in the union, marriage lasts forever. There is no divorce.
Yes.
So it's not, if you, it's not like it's one of those things, well, this one didn't work, right? You have to discern it so that it lasts forever. I like that, right? It's forever.
Well, and then that's what you get frustrated, of course, and any dating relationships that you're, in with your, high school or college, you're going to have fights. I mean, that's just part of being, human, but to understand that you can build from that and learn from that and take that, especially knowing that your union with your wife and your relationship eventually will build from any kind of struggles, because that's one thing, Jesus, and God will not give you anything that you can handle, in a sense of even in your marriage. And I think the big thing I would tell any youth is make sure it's the right person. Discern that over and over and over again in your head, in your mind, in your heart, with everything that you're a part of. Make sure you have a foundation with your faith, which that's one thing we did. We would go, when we were dating, my wife would come to Erie, PA, and we would go to daily mass. We would do, different theology on tap, which is a young adult get together, and anything that we can build off of faith. It was the number one thing. And then after that, things can grow. I think the big thing is make sure you have a solid relationship with Jesus and God, and to make sure that the person is the right person, in the sense of you have to look in the big picture. I think that's one thing that you get carried away, and it's so easy to, the divorce rate is so high. It's almost like a game. And I know it sounds bad, but it's almost like, okay, I can do this. It's easy. It's not a big deal. I'm part of the statistic. It's not like anything. It's not a big deal to, get a divorce. It is a big deal, because you're. I mean, and you have to go through the church too.
Yeah, you can't just. You have to have God in the relationship somewhere. Otherwise, it'll fall apart. And I liked how you talked about like struggles, right? Otherwise, people, right? Oh no, we had a fight. Okay, this isn't working out. Okay, well, so we're humans. Sometimes people disagree.
No, and that's.
It's not going to be the end of the world because you didn't, again, that's why you have to have God in the relationship to be able to live out human life with, hand in hand with God, right? Which is good, which brings us to our third vocation, being single. Because we talked about earlier, vocation is God's plan for your life. So, religious vocation is if you become priest religious. Singlehood is a vocation too, right? People think it's a tragedy, right? I know people, they do the second guess, maybe I'm not attractive enough, or, maybe I should, have a better sense of humor, or maybe I'm not funny enough, right?
Right.
Then they're like, okay, there must be something wrong with me because I'm single. Oh my goodness, this is a travesty. Call the papers.
No,
right? And then you think, well, actually, no, God might not have that in mind for you right now.
Right.
Or maybe down the road, right? And I like singlehood because there's some careers really that you need to be single so that you can devote your time to that. Right now, right, as youth, right, our vocation is to be students, right? That is our vocation. But being single is awesome because you can devote a ton of time to God. You can get to know yourself, right? Because you need to know yourself before you can date somebody else, because then you're getting to know them, but then you don't know yourself in there. And there's just some careers that really you should be single, because they demand so much time that, right, if you're like a doctor, a nurse, a police officer, right, EMT, they're on call 24 hours a day. Right, you know, otherwise you get married, right? Your wife's having a baby, and I have to go, right? Or, you know, somebody like military personnel, even youth ministers, like youth speakers, right? You won't always be home. There'll be periods where you're not home.
No, that's great. Yeah.
Which is hard, right? And parenting, as I'm sure you can tell us, is a full-time job.
Yes, it is.
So you can't be trying to, you know, you have to be, if you're going to be married, that is part of your job, right? You're going to have to be, you know, bringing up the kids and all that. And sometimes they're not always cute.
Well, yeah.
They do a lot of cute stuff, but sometimes not so cute.
And just going back to, you know, single, you know, that's a vocation. When I was single, it was frustrating. You felt like it was a curse, and I think the youth needs to understand, like you're saying, that the relationship with, you know, understanding and building a relationship with Jesus and God, as through yourself. Is the number one thing, and it's a very helpful way of doing that, and you don't have to worry about. You have all
the time in the world.
I mean, you have all the time in the world, like you said, to worry about the other parts of your you know relationships and all that. Have a relationship with Jesus.
I think so, because that's the thing, when you're dating somebody, you're or even when you're dating, you know, the priesthood or the religious life, right? You're getting to know them, or that vocation, that lifestyle, right? So you have to know yourself so that then you can focus on learning them, right? And that's why, you know, singlehood is a vocation, right? You know, and it's not just, well, you know, I have a busy life, right? It's a vocation. It's what you're picked for, and then that's, you know, and sometimes, granted, we can mishear the call, and that's why you have to spend a, you know, good time discerning, so that you're all on the same page with God, right? Which isn't always, you know, the easiest thing to do, or the most comfortable thing to do, or even I don't want to do that.
Right. No, that's true.
Because that's, you know, I don't want to do that. It's like, you know, or like, you know, like those kids in the grocery store. Yeah, but I don't want to eat that. I don't want to do this.
Yes.
I want to do this. I have this in mind. Right. I wrote this whole book about, you know, speaking of books, when are you writing a book on being married? Because you should write a national youth bestseller.
Well, yeah. Everybody. Well, that's the thing. I always laugh. There's some really solid books out there, but you know, everybody's different. Every marriage, every vocation that you're going through is different. So you can't, you know, and that's the greatest thing, that God created us all different. All our fingerprints are totally different. We're like snowflakes in the sense of how we do our vocation and how we connect with someone else. I think that's the thing of, do we, number one, connect with God? The number two, do we connect in the vocation that we're doing? If it's marriage, if it's religious life, single life, it doesn't matter what we're doing, but we have to connect with that vocation. And number one, having God as that and I think Chat Mom mentioned glue. I think that's the thing.
God's the glue.
Right, and one thing, a book that I would write it's called GPS. I think I always think about this, and this is one thing that got me back into the Catholic faith, was connection of God with, satellites. GPS is kind of a global station, and so there's satellites, or God is out there, and the people that you're connecting with, if it's, or a vocation that you're connecting with, is down here, and there's different basically networks on the
I like that.
I need to copyright that and figure out somehow get GPS as a book or some kind of
Kent is writing a book.
I'm taking that. Anyone in the chat room, I'm taking that.
That's his idea. Do not take it. Thou shalt not steal. Right. Kent's ideas. Yeah, so we're going to take a break, then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about why you should go on a retreat, and then what is in a Catholic gal's backpack. Very interesting. So we will be back after these messages.
Yep.
Any study of Catholicism must start with the Catechism of the Catholic Church. It's a beautifully crafted summary of the faith, pulling together thousands of references from throughout Scripture and tradition. But what if the summary connected you to its sources and became a gateway into the faith? In the Verbum edition of the Catechism, the references come alive. Journey from the Catechism to Vatican II, the Church Fathers, and to the Scripture itself. Discover the foundations for doctrines like baptism or the Eucharist, and let it be your companion to the daily readings from Mass. Capture your insights with notes and highlights, and Verbum syncs them across your computers and mobile devices. Verbum is a dynamic library system. You can start with the basic catechism collection, or choose a larger library with hundreds of books and amazing study tools. Allow the Catechism to transform your study of the faith. Visit verbum.com/catechism and get yours today.
And we're back.
We're back. Yay. We're gonna wave. We're back again. Yay.
Stay. Thank you for staying with us.
Thank you for staying and not dropping off.
Yes. Everybody.
So we're going to talk about why you should go on a retreat. So spring and summer, retreat seasons, many churches and parishes, right? Catholic churches, Christian churches, they've all got retreats.
Uh-huh.
And I talk a lot about my retreat experiences because they've been fundamental in helping me in my faith. And I've also mentioned the fact that I'm going to a youth conference at the end of May, big, huge diocesan-wide. Yay!
That's awesome.
Right, so, but why are retreats so important? I mean, why should you, you sitting watching the show right now, why should you go on a retreat if you get the opportunity? I mean, is it fun, or is it we're all going to sit in a circle and saying Kumbaya, right?
Well,
or some people why should I go? Or it's going to be boring.
Well, I think it's, for me, it's a way of kind of getting fired up. I think for a lot of people, I mean, that's for me, but I don't know for other people, but it's just a way to unite with others and to kind of start a relationship. You meet people on a retreat. I mean, the diocesan youth rally, and what you're going to, tons of people are probably,
they're
I don't know.
We're all there, and actually that was something I was pointing out, right? So there's according to me, there's 4 main reasons why, if you get the chance, you should go on a youth retreat. So I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
Tell you why you should go on a youth retreat. And one of them is, when you're on a retreat, you're surrounded by a ton of people. But the thing about that is you're surrounded by people that are all of a like mind, which is awesome, right? I remember the first time I went on a retreat, somehow in my warped head, I forgot that it was a Catholic retreat, and we did opening prayer, and I'm like, okay, it's going to be that fun, awkward moment of I'm the only person who does this, the sign of the cross. And I happened to look up, and then I remembered, oh, wait, we're Catholic, as all 150 kids do. I'm like, hey, this is like a, it's like the symbol that we all know. This is great. Right. So it's a safe, welcoming environment, right? Instead of, when you go to school sometimes, right, it's not always welcomed. You get made fun of. Not always a nice situation. But when you're in a retreat, you're surrounded in a safe environment by people that are all of a like mind. Right. So, and then because of the second reason, because of the group setting, right, we have, people can encourage others, right? Like as you were saying, people can, encourage you to, right. In some cases, we're all going to confession, right? Where are you going? Well, I wasn't going to, but if you're asking, sure. Right. Because we feed, like I've had in my own experience, right? We feed off of the atmosphere that we're surrounded by. Right. So if everybody's all, yay, team God, right, you'll be like kind of swept up in that. Yeah. And hey, I can go to confession. I can go. Yeah, I'm going. And then
Well, no. And that's the thing. I love because, going to one of as a youth and then as an adult, there's so much a difference. And I think with the youth, just because of, of the show, I remember feeling like your peers, like you're saying, kind of are not forcing you, but it's a sense of you don't want to be kind of
the only one not going.
Yeah, and then there's a difference because and I think Kelly in the chat room, the youth conference is going to be far from boring. I think that's so true because
that makes me really happy. Yeah.
But I mean, but you have to make something out of that because some people, because I know with the youth retreat that I went on, it took me 5 years to really get motivated to go, and finally going. I didn't want to go or be there after around noon. I wanted to leave, but people were saying you have to stay. There's not in a have to stay, but please stay. You'll regret it.
You'll like it.
Yeah, you'll regret
going home early.
Yeah, and I totally understood because it was kind of, and I know people are gonna like shake their heads, but it's kind of like what we did was to encounter Christ, tech, and what it felt like. It's one day you die, and then it's basically the 3 days of Jesus' resurrection, and so, but it felt like, and I know it's kind of funny, but seeing how things work like at Disney, because there's so much going on behind the scenes, and in a retreat there's people praying for you 24 hours a day in a little shrine that they create. There's so much stuff being done behind the scenes where it's usually some kind of if there's like a main group of people that are kind of running the retreat. But I mean, in a conference, it's different with the size and all that. But as a retreat, I love how the people that are running it are praying, are so excited to have the people
you individually
attending it. So I
like that. I like how Kelly is just pointing out, there's a ton of youth that are shy to go, right? So I encourage everybody, if you get the chance, go. It can be, sometimes it's uncomfortable. I just don't want to go. What if they make me go to confession? Are they going to make me go to confession? I'm not going now. When it's on the agenda, that's it. No. I'm not going.
Right. No.
Go anyway, because you always learn something. It's an amazing experience because, right, you get to draw close to Christ because on retreats there's typically less distractions. Yes. All the retreats I go to, there's no cell phones. There's no cell phones. That pretty much just like takes out a ton of distractions. Right? There's no cell phones all day. You can look at it when you get up and when you go to bed, and that's it. So
no, that's and we need to have that. And I think sometimes people are okay. That's not going to be fun. I don't want that. I don't want that part.
Leave my phone home. No, I'm not going. But when you take the distractions out, right? You do all kinds of weird things you never thought you'd do, like go to confession or actually pay attention and enjoy mass, or hey, there's a priest here. I wonder if we'll talk to him. Next, you've been talking to him for half an hour, right? Or you pray in new ways, right? Retreats, you get to pray in a group setting, which can be awesome, right? You're praying, or people are praying for you, right? Like when I've gone on retreats, we do like where you surrender to Christ, right? So there's people, we encourage you to surrender yourself to Christ, and then we all pray for them, right? And then you rededicate yourselves to Christ, and then everybody there prays for you, right? And then I know Chat Mom was pointing it out earlier in the show, in the chat room, about Eucharistic adoration, right? I live for the Eucharistic adoration at our retreats. I'm like, yay, Eucharistic adoration! It's so great, right?
Yes.
It's also different than when I have my little tiny chapel and it's just me. It's kind of like surreal when you've got like 150 other people all doing the same thing. It's really, it's an awesome feeling.
no, and that's you kind of World Youth Day. That's probably. I mean, that's the largest. I mean, I can't imagine anything larger than World Youth Day as a
it's
place.
The ultimate youth conference.
Yes, exactly. So, but I mean, here's an image. Just I know you've sent over. I mean, that's just
That's what a retreat is, right? We're coming to visit God. That's why I like the image. I'm like, well, sometimes people are like, well, no. When you go on a retreat, you're visiting Jesus. You're coming to see him, and he's coming to see you as you are, where you are, who you are in that moment, right?
Yep. That's a great.
There's, and when people go on retreats, right? By the first day, they're kind of like, I'm so and so, right? We all come with our, coming straight from the world. By like the second night, this is who I am. I need healing. I need this. This is just me, right? I don't have to put on a show. I don't have to have a facade. We're all the same mind. I'm not getting judged.
Yes.
This is who I am.
Well, isn't that kind of like the whole, as a youth, I know in my high school and even college days, you felt always judged. And that's the reversal at a retreat, where you are not judged. You look as a son or daughter of Christ, and that's
or brothers and sisters in Christ, right? Because we're all part of God's family. So I'm not judging you. You're my brother, right? That's just how it is. Because there's a ton of judging that goes on, whether it's in the workplace, in the schools, the restaurant you go to where you make a sign of the cross, and people are like, and what is that? Is she like part of some weird cult that we haven't heard of?
No.
I know, because I get those looks in the restaurant. People are like, what's going on over there? What is she doing?
No, well, I think, but it feels like, when you do go to a retreat, there's so much more that you could take out of, and I think that's sometimes that how you take the retreat or the conference or whatever you're doing, make sure you do something with your time there, because some people will. Don't
just go and be like, the food was good.
Well, you're always going to be talking about the food or some kind of anything.
Or the food was terrible. I can't believe they made us eat that.
Or, I heard it.
The beds were terrible.
Well, exactly. The sleeping arrangements, the showers, like.
The showers, there's no hot water, right?
Yeah.
What? No curling irons?
Well, that's one thing. As a adult, there was a men's retreat. And there was you heard a little, growling about the showers, and I'm tall, and the showers were low, but I mean, you just take it as what it is, you know.
You take it in stride because you're getting this awesome, you know, once in a lifetime experience.
Yes.
Of, yeah, I'm loving Kelly's.
Yes, I know, it's great.
Because yes, the retreat I'm going to, we're all doing foamies and sleeping bags on the gym floor. So. People who grumble, they just decided not to go in general. So
yeah, just don't. Yeah,
if you don't want to sleep on a foamy, then this is not the retreat for you. Go to the ones, we're you know.
It's 5. It's not 4 stars in the sense of what people would think
it's
of
not the Hilton.
It's not
the
Hilton.
Doesn't come with God. If you want God, no Hilton. Sorry.
Right, but the grace that you will get is 4 stars plus. Kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
that's the.
So that makes me think, as I'm thinking about retreats and how I have got a retreat coming up. It's making me think of packing. And packing's fun, isn't it?
Yes.
So it makes me think of, you know, packing Catholic sis style. So I thought I'd show you a few things that Catholic gals should carry. And granted, everything I'm going to show you does not fit in a purse. It fits in this lovely backpack I have. Isn't it nice, bright and colorful? Yay! Nice and shiny. So not everything fits in a normal bag, but what should you be taking as a Catholic gal? So as I'm looking in this monstrous bag here, there has to be my Bible. It's kind of worn. It's got a ton of sticky tabs. I accidentally spilled holy water on it one time. I was like I was doing a pilgrimage in my backyard, so I thought I'd put it in my bag and walk around, and then the holy water like spilled onto it. So I've got a really blessed Bible. It's like, I'm going to Fatima, and yeah, I spilt it. So that was an epic fail. Anyhow, I also have my catechism in here that again has sticky notes and is highlighted to, you know, the end of the world and back.
Yes.
I've got my keys, which have Benedictine cross on them.
Good.
Because I like to see that, and my key tag says best friends on it, but I like the Benedictine cross. It looks kind of nice. Then when I go on youth retreats, I always bring the same old journal because I spend, you know, the whole retreat. Oh, quick! I gotta try and write that down before I forget. I want to write down what Father said. Oh no, I'm gonna forget, because the first year I went, I remembered everything. Then I got home, couldn't remember a single thing. So I'm like, I texted one of the ladies who was on the retreat, and I said, "Hey, do you remember what that prayer was that we said? Do you remember what it was called?" I forgot. I didn't write it down. And then I got my cute pen a friend of mine gave me. It's got a little angel Cupid, because nice. I just like that. And then I'm usually writing as I'm on retreat, so I've got my working notebook, which is what I write blog posts and show notes and that stuff in. And yes, there is still more junk in here.
Wow. That's great.
Which includes my missal. I take my missal when I go on retreat, because we always have mass, so I always want to follow along with whatever the priest is saying.
Yeah.
The book I'm reading at the moment, I do not go on a retreat without a book, which happens to be Arlene Spenceley's Chastities for Lovers, as we're talking about singlehood and, you know, all that.
Great.
That fun stuff. Retreats. I remember on a retreat I went to one time, we were praying the chaplet, and the speaker forgot a rosary. And when I pack for retreat, I have a vest I wear on retreats because it's got a ton of pockets. So I put my rosary in there. The one I use is it's like Sisters of Mercy. It's got Relic of Saint Faustina in the middle of it.
Okay.
And the JP2 crucifix, which not everybody is, you know, partial to, but I like it. And then I also have a spare rosary, which it's the lovely plastic kind, bright yellow plastic kind. Because when I go out places and I meet with people, sometimes people say, "What's a rosary? What is that?" So I always have stuff in my backpack that I can give to people.
That's great.
Right?
Yep.
I can give stuff that I don't need back, because sometimes it just needs to be in the right place at the right time. Of, well, actually, I have a rosary, or I have, a little pamphlet on how to pray the rosary here. Take it.
Yes.
And there you go. And then when I go on retreats, I always have my phone, which I don't have in my backpack at the moment. I always have my headphones. I'm a youth. I have to have headphones. And at the moment, I also have the CD I'm listening to, which is Unspoken's CD. Really good. They actually happen to be the... Oh, let me think. They did the theme song for our retreat this year. So I'm doing that. And then last but not least is my big, really clunky wallet, which I was talking to one of my friends, Pipe Padre, last night, and he was talking about how his rosary has a crucifix that says, I am a Catholic, in case of an emergency, please call a priest. And I have a card that says that I keep in my wallet. And it says, I am a Catholic. In the event of an accident, please call a priest. And it has, my priest's name and his number on it. And I take it everywhere. It sits right next to my ID because I want everybody to know what my name is and that I'm Catholic.
No, that's great.
So that's all the junk that Catholic gals carry around.
That's awesome.
I might as well just pack it all back up and leave it by the door for the retreat in a month. Take the journal. I saw Kelly saying that now she's going to make it like mandatory that everybody brings a journal to the retreat. You're welcome, everybody. Don't forget the pens, because it does no good. I usually have a highlighter in there too, because I'm always highlighting stuff. So don't forget the pen. A journal does no good. We're not. If I just do this, it'll go into the journal. It doesn't. You actually have to write it.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing. It's nice to be able to write down, because just listening or even record it. If you have I know you can't have a cell phone or anything, but even if it's just a recorder or something to have as something as a back, or like you're saying, writing it down is probably the best way to do it. And
I spent the retreat I went on in February. I was the kid in the very front row seat, sitting there taking notes the entire time.
That's awesome.
I sat and took notes the entire keynote session, so it was fun. So I'll have to just put it all back in there and then take my backpack on retreat. Not forgetting the journal, and Kelly says she's nice enough that she's going to give me pens. So yay for her!
Nice.
And before I wrap it up for the night, I know we're winding close to the hour, but I have one question I promised I would answer tonight, which was, how should we respond when Christians don't understand the language of the Bible, as in what the actual terminology means? So as teenagers and young people, we sometimes get this opportunity, where people say, what does that mean? Or what do you believe in the Bible? Or, that kind of stuff. Right? So if your apologetic skills are really up to snuff and you feel like, going for it, then go for it and try and explain it in a way that you think they might be able to understand. If not, introduce them to your priest. Introduce them to the RCIA teacher, right? Instruction of the Catechism for Adults. Introduce them to that person, because then they can, instruct them in a way that, they can talk to the person, see what level they're on, or invite them along to your, Bible study, parish Bible study. Right?
Great. Yeah.
Because then, again, you're all in a like environment. There are no stupid questions.
Yeah.
And people are like, my question's going to be stupid. They're going to laugh.
Well, and that's the thing. I don't think there's any knowledge is, in a sense, they say power.
Knowledge is power, yeah.
And so knowledge of your faith is power to help others. And so I think asking questions and feeling dumb about it is not a bad thing. It's just that you don't know and you want to learn something. I think that's it. I don't know. So
I think that's good. So we're down to the top of the hour.
Yeah.
We just threw a whole bunch of information at you. I hope you were taking notes.
Right. And definitely, support CatholicSys.com and Fiat Ministry. If you guys, prayers are number one. But, great website with Catholic Sis is right over here. And then we also, with Fiat Ministry, whatever, it does cost some money to do this, and any prayers are number one. But if we can, between just the knowledge of trying to spread for you guys to know more about the faith and to teach, hopefully the youth to come in, chat, email, anything that you would like to do, please do that. One thing that I do have on the website on Fiat Ministry, and people could use this. If you want to record a question that you want to ask Catholic Sis, you can do that. And we could play that over the air in a future episode. But that's another way if you are not shy about, recording.
If you want to give us your questions. And like Ken said, if you want to, check out CatholicSys.com. I'm always adding new stuff to it. You can always catch old episodes of the show that you missed under the Talkin Faith with Catholic Sis tab in case you missed it or just want to hear it again. So, yeah. And in the same vein of questions, don't forget that you can send them to me on Twitter at Catholic Sis using the hashtag AskCatholicSis. And then I can see it and answer it, or send me an email through the site, or my email's also on the credits after the show. Yeah. So,
thanks everybody in the chat room. We got
the chat room's been just crazy buzzing.
Crazy.
We got some new faces, some old faces that we love to see. So we're always glad to see everybody and to have the support. Make sure you join us back here again next week, 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern, because I'm a West Coast girl. So before I say good night, please join me in the prayer of Catholic Sis, written by me. So in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Lord, help me to always stay close to you and do your will in every circumstance. Remind me that my beautiful Catholic faith is something to be treasured, not something to ever hide. Guide me to live out every day in your name, and every time I come in contact with someone, may I see your face in them, and remember that the least I do to one of these brothers or sisters, I do to you. In your most precious name I pray, amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Don't forget my favorite Bible verse, 2 Timothy 4:2. Proclaim the word. Be persistent, whether it is convenient or inconvenient. Convince, reprimand, encourage through all patience and teaching. Until next time, keep talking faith. And remember, Catholic isn't something we are just once a week. It's a way of life. Have a great night, and God bless.
Stay connected with Fiat Ministry Network. Like us on Facebook. Stay updated at fiatministrynetwork.tv/feed. Follow us on Twitter at FiatMinistryNet. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/FiatMinistryNetwork. Fiat Ministry Network, encouraging all to say yes to Jesus Christ.